Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session. Today, we are going to talk about how it is possible to transform the way to produce a live event for sports and how data and automation can help to completely change the way you operate. I'm Simone D'Antone, and I'm Global Strategy Leader for Broadcast in AWS. And for the past 3 years, I've been working on expanding the capabilities of live production in the cloud. If there is something I learned during this time is that everybody loves sport and the storytelling associated, and everybody wants to watch more sports live. For example, do you know how many viewers watched the Super Bowl final this year? I know you know. That is the most watched single event in the US history. Anyone wants to guess how many streams the Paris Olympics Games generated? Impressive, isn't it? What is even more impressive is that it's more than double than the previous Tokyo Games happened just 3 years before. But what makes watching live sport so compelling to the global audience? Sport is as much about cultural expression as it is about competition. Europeans love soccer. India gravitates on cricket. Americans can get enough of football. And in the TV world, live production is essential to drive audience engagement. For example, imagine the experience of watching a crucial game-winning moment or witness an historic touchdown. Live production can transport audience to the event venue, making them feel like if they are part of the action. Moreover, live production fosters a sense of community and connection where viewers around the globe can comment, react, and participate in foreign games, no matter what time it is, no matter where the games are played. This creates a unique opportunity for who is producing and broadcasting event to reach a wider audiences and in turn to increase their revenue. On top of that, the truth is that there exists an even higher potential to produce more events. Research from analysts estimates that today hundreds of thousands of sports events are produced annually on a global scale. But there exists a vast number, potentially in the millions, of live sports that take place but are not covered by any media outlet. This represents a huge addressable market, so why we don't simply take the opportunity? The reality is that live production has been done one way for decades, packed inside giant trucks with high overhead, tons of cable, and zero flexibility. These trucks contain all the specific dedicated equipment to capture and produce the event, such as vision mixer, audio mixer, replay graphics, server for the replay server. And packed inside the truck, there is also the crew that needs to operate this machine, audio engineer, a technical director, producer. Producing an event in this way comes with three kinds of costs. High cost for travel, accommodation, and transportation. High cost in terms of time for preparation and setup. And high cost of the associated CO2 emissions. And producing an event in this way makes sense only when the revenue that generates is higher than this cost. But what if I told you that you can produce this event at a fraction of those costs and therefore address that famous uncovered potential? Imagine that rather than buy or build a truck, you can create your virtual truck in the cloud in a matter of minutes. Sure, you still need something physical, a smaller obi-van and a reduced crew to operate cameras and mics, but other than that, everything else can be done in the cloud. So imagine to have the flexibility to build this truck with the exact size and component you need for each specific event. No more guessing or over-provisioning. Imagine you can use and run this production just for the time you need and then get rid of it right after. This creates enormous benefit, including the fact that the crew can now operate virtually from everywhere, in a faraway production control room or in the comfort of their own home. You realize the amount of time, money, and CO2 emission you can save, right? And therefore the possibility to produce more events. In AWS, together with our broadcast partner, we've been working to make these processes better and better, solving and smoothing out critical factors such as latency, delay, quality, all to provide the operators and, of course, the fan audiences an even better experience. And today, This is what we call live cloud production.
In the world of live sports and entertainment, production demands to deliver live events are constantly evolving. Traditional on-premises setups often struggle to keep pace, facing challenges in scalability, flexibility, and efficiency. That's why with AWS, live cloud production is ready to meet your needs, no matter where the audience takes you. Unlike rigid physical setups that require substantial upfront investment and often end up over-provisioned, AWS allows you to scale up or down based on changing requirements. This flexibility means you only use what you need when you need it, avoiding over-provisioning or underutilizing resources. It's an adaptive approach to live production, aligning with the dynamic nature of live events. You'll also enjoy worldwide reach, using the extensive global infrastructure of AWS and the highest throughput and lowest latency cloud network. You can broadcast live content to audiences around the world without constraints. Whether it's a local event or a global tournament, AWS ensures that your content reaches viewers with minimal latency and high reliability. That way, you can expand your audience without compromising the quality of the viewing experience. AWS and AWS partners provide a suite of cloud-based services and solutions designed to enhance production quality and streamline workflows. These tools offer advanced video processing, vision and audio mixing, replay, data-driven graphics, signal processing, discovery, routing, real-time analytics, generative AI, and more, helping you improve both the technical and creative aspects of your production. And with remote production capabilities, creative teams can work from just about anywhere and keep broadcast operations agile and innovative, while lowering the carbon footprint and improving sustainability. It's a more flexible, secure, efficient, and sustainable way to put on a show. Live cloud production on AWS. Broadcast as usual, storytelling like never before.
Cool, isn't it? Let me recap all the benefits coming from this adoption. In terms of cost, you can minimize the need of on-prem hardware, maintenance, and upfront investment, resulting in a model shift from a rigid, hard-to-predict CapEx into a more easy-to-manage and agile OpEx. And as I said before, the pay-as-you-go model is the cherry on top, because you can now really pay for what you use for the time you use. One of the great advantages of this adoption is scalability. A cloud-based live environment can easily scale up or down accordingly to the size of the event to produce or the magnitude of the audiences. And so, for example, scaling from a single camera to produce remote news up to 40 cameras to cover Formula One. And of course, you can run the environment just for the duration of the event. And when the event is over, you can turn off the resources or immediately relocating for another production happening somewhere else. By default, this approach enables remote collaboration, breaking down geographical barriers and allowing teams from multiple locations to work together seamlessly. This not only makes a direct impact on the CO2 associated with travel, but also using AWS data center, which are 100% powered by renewable energy and green by design, makes the whole carbon footprint way more efficient. And finally, you have the freedom to experiment with new workload, new resources, new components, and being in the cloud, you can experiment with all the power of machine learning and AI. Last but not least, you can automate these processes rather than manually reinventing the wheel. And I would like to spend some time on this specific concept, as this is essential to what comes next. We are used to hear the sentence, "Content is the king," which is true. For users, content is absolutely the king. But I would argue that for us, for who makes content, data is the king. Having the right data and granularity of information can help us to make informed decisions as well as create automations. Today, we have tools such as CloudFormation template or Terraform scripts that, with a click of a mouse, can spin up all the resources, connect them together, apply the security rules, and just leave the environment ready to operate. But what if, rather than a mouse click, we can use data to start this process? Imagine a tennis match. We have data that tell us who is playing, on which field, when. So why don't lean on those data and make them the source of our automation? The concept is, with the right data, we can trigger the creation of the right environment for each specific event. But at this point, why limiting ourselves to the creation of live production gallery? Why don't use data to spin up playout channel, distribution chain, archive recording system, and basically shift into an event-based model which follow the nature of the event? To answer this question, let me tell you a story. Last year, 30 broadcast experts from Sky and AWS decided to redesign the whole transmission chain end-to-end, from the acquisition of the content to the distribution, with this exact goal in mind, to use data as much as possible to automate the processes. So they decided to spend 2 full days closed in a room to whiteboard this idea. The first day, they dissected each solution area to identify bottleneck or inefficiencies. So they saw the content acquisition, the production gallery, the playout the chain, the distribution, all trying to find commonalities or area or overlap that could have been removed or automated, and keeping data as a core component across all the work stream. Guess what? At the end of the day, the dashboard they drew looked exactly as the current production system, siloed and not connected. And I guess that's normal. As a human, we have the tendency to go back to what we know. So they went out for dinner a little bit discouraged about this outcome. And for the next day, they decided to play a little game. They started the day welcoming everyone with, "Good morning, you are all fired." But the good news is that you now work for a startup, Greenfield, which can't give you thousands of money, thousands of resources, a huge capex to spend. But what can give you is every single piece of tech resources available in the cloud. That little experiment challenged the status quo, forcing them to completely change mindset and also approaching the problem under a different lens. The output of the second day, someone that was with me in that room is about to tell you. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Dave Travis. Yours.
Hello, Rob. Thank you. So good morning. It's nice to be in our comfort zone around sports here rather than the madness that you see in the rest of the show. So I'm going to tell you about the story of what we did. I'm going to tell you a story about who we are. I'm going to talk about a transformation journey that we've been on. I stood up here with Simone 2 years ago and we talked about the transformation we did in those silos that has been quite instrumental to where we've gone now, and talk about how we've, and now I'm going to set the scene around our sports operation, where we are today, where we've moved to, where we're going in the future. Then I'm going to talk about Sky Sports Plus. Sky Sports Plus is a new proposition that we launched here in the UK, where rapidly we had to scale up to deliver 50% more sports with 9 months notice and no money. And then I'm going to tell you the scene about how we delivered this event-based architecture that is very data-driven and data-orientated. And then I'm going to talk about some of those lessons that came from that experience, which has been a very interesting journey. So let's get into it. So I work for content technology and innovation within Sky. We're effectively the hub, the people people don't really talk about, because our brands are what gets talked about. But in the core, we have an operational and engineering organization that are about 3,000 people. And we power all of our propositions. So whether it's rights, planning, scheduling, it's play out, we're effectively in the core of everything we do and all of our production environments. So I'm going to give you a little video. This is our video.
Sometimes you cannot believe your eyes.
Working in media, we always like a good sizzle reel, so it always has to be part there. It's kind of like the minimum requirements for every presentation. But in essence, so within CT&I, we span what we call glass to glass. So it's everything from the camera lens through to the delivering content to our customers. We've been on an amazing transformation journey. We were very wedded to hardware, very fixed capacity. We over-provisioned everything. And as we all know, if you work in a production environment, utilization is very low when you actually look at it. And so we wanted to rechange the way we went on that journey. As a production operator, we're one of the largest production providers in Europe. We have 3 core facilities in Italy, Germany, and the UK. We're talking about, when we first moved into the organization, we had like 2,000 racks of equipment, loads of OB vans, lots of fixed capacity. And we've been on this transformation journey, and I'm going to talk a bit more about what we've been doing. So, CT&I, as we said, we've been on this journey. We started in 2022, and that's where we focus around bringing these 3 different organizations, Italy, Germany, and the UK, together to create the same operating model. Try and say, look at all of our challenges, have the same teams, and say, if we were going to build one thing together, what would we do? So that's what we focus around, organizational structures and bringing everyone together, setting the expectation. In 2023, we started the transformation journey of building platforms in the cloud, working with Amazon as our partner and identifying all the different opportunities. And we've been very successful with that. We now have over 300 channels running in the cloud. We do live cloud production, we do remote production. So as Simone was talking about earlier, these are all living things that we have been delivering and executing on. And then all our media management workflows, etc., are all in the cloud. But that wasn't quite enough for us, and I'll unpack that a bit more in a minute. And then the final part of our jigsaw was to focus on abstraction, so working and operating anywhere globally. And obviously with the pandemic, we had to accelerate some of that thinking quite significantly. So in that transformation journey, we wanted to provide autonomy to our teams. We wanted them to, what are the key metrics that we were trying to achieve on our outcome? And everything was predominantly around moving to software. If we can move to software, we can get agility. And with that agility, we can then scale up and down and do all the wonderful things. So about speed to market. It was taking about 9 months to create a channel. And now we're creating channels in 4 minutes. To build a production environment, it was taking like a year to build a new gallery or put all the routing infrastructure. But now with software, we're doing that in minutes as well. And again, we'll talk about that in a short while. But all of that has transformed our operation and the way we work and just really been an amazing journey. So with our teams, and I use this slide quite often because people say, what are some of the success points is setting guardrails for your teams. It's like, if you want to go and focus an area, feel free to do it, have at it. But please ensure that you follow these engineering principles to ensure we're going right. Is everything cloud native? Can we connect everything through APIs? Is it data driven? So we want to ensure that everything, the teams are not introducing bad practices, because we all as an organization love going back to what we all know. But our engineers are the bedrock. They're the ones that understand these things. You can't just bring software engineers. You need to take your traditional broadcast engineers and transform them and take them on the journey of software. So we use these guardrails to help us with that. And within that has allowed us to transform our operations. So we're using data. We have been transforming the way we operate. And what we've been trying to do is push our different workflows up towards the upper quadrant that you see here around smart operations. We've got different levels of mixtures of success there, but it's definitely taking us on that journey. So exception-based monitoring, using the data to understand our workloads, using data to actually even look at things like total cost of ownership. Without that data at the core, it's very hard to make the argument around the transformation. And so we've been focusing on these different aspects, which has been very much a continuous process. So let's get into it a bit further. So at Comcast, sports is incredibly important. And as you can see from this slide, we're a global operator. We aggregate sports. So we take partners like Amazon Prime and we deliver it onto our platforms, be it Xfinity or Sky in the UK. So we're bringing those partners' experiences onto it so the customers have more choice. We was part of Entertainment OS, which is under Fraser Sterling's organization within Comcast. We are providing technology capabilities to different partners and platforms so they power their own experiences for their customers. And then on top of that, we're buying rights. So in UK, in Europe, and in the United States, working like partners with our NBCU, we have our own propositions and our own sports channels and also our own sporting, which then go onto our platforms. So it completes the whole circle of providing an end-to-end, and that is why sports at Comcast is a fundamental part of our strategy going forward. So let's talk about Sky Sports Plus. So this was the challenge. So back in 2023, Sky Sports announced that they had acquired all the rights for the English Football League. And for those of you in the United States, what is the English Football League? Is that the Premier League? No, it's not. That's the other 3 leagues below the Premier League. It's where the teams that get relegated from the Premier League end up. And there's this long tail, but it's incredibly important, and there's a huge fan base there. And we said, we want to provide that content to our customers. But that's an extra 666 games that we wanted to broadcast to our customers. And we're all sitting there thinking, this is going to be a bit of a problem. We can't build more galleries. We do not have the feasible space. We don't have the time to build that. So we said we're going to have to push the boundaries. And as Simone said, that's when we fired everyone. And we kind of got into it and sort of said, if we could reimagine the way we do it, how would we do it to be more efficient? How would we do it to be really lean? How would we almost do it with no operators? So we then subsequently found out that's not the end of the story. We've also acquired all this other content. So we now need to deliver about 17,000 events to customers in a year. About 30,000 hours of content. And that's a lot, right? So the challenge only increased. And guess what? You've got 9 months to do it, and you've got next to no investment. So we really had to push the boundaries. So the first thing we set some objectives. What are the things that we're going to measure ourselves against? So we know we want to be scalable. We want to use software. We want to ensure that the architecture only persists for the duration of the event. Because we talk about utilization. If I compare the way we do Premier League galleries today, it's completely over provision. We've got EVS servers, we've got massive vision mixers, but they're only used for like many hours in a week. But most of the time it's sitting there and it stays on because as engineers we don't want to turn it off, we don't touch it, consuming loads of energy. So we wanted to say, let's try and get away from that. And then let's only deploy parts of the service we need, because as we know, production levels and tierings are different. So sometimes you need a huge vision mixer and other times you only need a small part of it. So let's only deploy what we need. Let's build greenfield. Let's forget what we've done before. Let's start again. So as well as that though, we needed the ability to forward book the capacity. For those who have not worked in this environment yet, cloud is amazing, but it's not infinite. So you have to manage that and consider that when you're going forward. And then let's use data to drive the automation. So we know that we've got all of these sporting providers out here and in other parts of the world, all provide live data feeds. So how do we use that data to drive the automation? That then creates smart operations, so we can do automated scheduling and planning of those events. And we talked about the 9-month problem. And then, is this then the pathway to how we transform sports for the future? So I'm going to get into a little bit now what we did and what we executed. So this is most of our infrastructure today. And it's the same as what exists in most parts of the industry. It's this over-provisioned, over-invested environment. It's very static, very hard to change, lots of change control, tons and tons of cabling. In our infrastructure, we've got 30,000 2110 streams, just to give you a scale, right? But we didn't want to use that for this proposition. So what we targeted is building this event-based architecture, allows infinite scale, allows us to pivot quickly, spinning up and down on demand, using the data, as I said before, but equally still providing this ultra-reliable output. Because when we launched this service, there was no compromise in terms of what the customers expect. They don't know we're doing this different, so we still have to provide the same level as what we would do. So if you're doing a Premier League game or you're doing a lower tier football match, it still has to have the same levels of reliability. So what we did is we pulled together this architecture. So everything for us all starts with data. We integrate when we bring on the rights, we integrate whether it's Opta or it's with working with a tennis organization or golf, we bring in their data feeds. Then we focus on moderating that data to ensure it's reliable. And then that allows us to then compare the rights with the data feed. If we can create that correlation, then suddenly we're in a situation that we can fully augment the planning and rights aspects of those events. So now it just gives the sports team a list of, this is everything you have rights for, and these are the fixtures of those games. Tell us all the ones you do not want to broadcast. Because remember, infinite scale, we've acquired all these rights. So we've flipped the entire model on its head to say, don't show that one, don't show that one. That conflicts with maybe another thing we're doing in another part of the business. But that then creates this triggering point that we can build on. So then that allows us to do other things. We now then use that data to forward book and reserve the capacity because we know what the fixtures are, we know we've got the rights, and so we are scheduling in Amazon the capacity in the blocks we need, and then that loads up our event orchestrator. Because we know what the tier of the event is and the type of technology we need to introduce, whether we need to produce it or whether we're just doing some small curation on a world feed, the system is automatically planning and forward reserving all the different things we need. So then, on the day of the event, we use all of these blocks to deploy the ecosystem. So we are acquiring the content and bringing it all into the cloud. So we're on-ramping that from locations or from our facilities in the markets. We're then deploying our live production resources. So if we need vision mixing, if we need talkback, if we need audio to create that. So for tennis, for those of you who've ever done different sports, tennis is like the most complicated. It's a nightmare. It's always moving and changing around. So for tennis, we do a lot of production on tennis, but we try and do it as automated as possible. It runs throughout the night, non-stop. It just feels like a never-ending amount of output that you have to manage. So we're scaling up and down all of those environments and doing that. Then we are bringing it through and we're trying to process all the different feeds. We're adding graphics, we're topping and tailing it. We're providing monitoring solution for our operations team. They have all the exception-based monitoring around it. Then we're encoding it and delivering it all the way through to an app. As well as all of that, we're using this data to power the customer experience. So images, synopsis, the events, providing tiles. So the customer, when the customer comes to the app, they only see what is available to them. So it's a fully on-demand model of scaling up and down. And then obviously we're pumping that out to all these different propositions. So that's going to Sky Stream, it's going to Sky Glass, so it's going to set-top boxes, it's going to apps, it's going to mobile devices, it's going to third parties. It's also going to Peacock, and Peacock is powering a lot of our OTT propositions. So it's going through all these different ecosystems and finding its way through to the customer. So what does that look like? How successful were we? Well, we launched in July this year, And in 5 months, we've now delivered 7,000 hours of content across 3,420 events. That's like quite a lot, right? But it's the other numbers that I think are really exciting. So at the moment, we delivered 50 concurrent events. We've tested over 100 concurrent events. Next year, we know we'll do over 200 concurrent events. So that's quite a big scale. And again, you could never do that with traditional workflows today. No facility could do that level of in one area. But these 98% reduction in carbon, okay, that's a big number. Is he saying we're reusing the renewable energy from Amazon? No. We have consumed 98% less power because we're only spinning up and down the things we need when we need them. Because if I compare that to how we do the facilities today, we're just leaving this stuff on and burning energy. It is as reliable as what we have in the past because everything is active, multi-region, multiple AZs, full segregation. But then I asked the guys, well, how much have we really done on the scaling? 47,000 instances we've spun up and down in 5 months, which is just like staggering. It's like a real, I think these are big numbers. And then we've managed to reduce our CapEx because we haven't had to build and wire in loads of traditional infrastructure to manage this. And in our sports operation, everything in our current model, the bit on the left when I presented earlier, it was one-to-one. There was one operator to one output. But using the automation and putting in all the triggering and all the data, we've now got 10 outputs to one operator. So you can see how it's 10 times less in terms of the operation. So it's really streamlined a lot of what we've been doing. So it's not been easy. We've had a lot of challenges. So data accuracy. We talk about pulling in the data, but the data is a bit foggy. It's not always reliable. We've seen lots of instances where the data comes in and is saying that the game has finished. When you're looking at it, you're going, the game has not finished. And in that has, through testing, we learned that we could have taken customers off air because we're tearing up and down the infrastructure based on that data. And if you have a cup, a soccer cup game, and it's drawn at 90 minutes, it will go to extra time, it goes to penalties. That can be an hour longer than you expected, or if any sport is overrunning. So understanding the data and the accuracy is important. And so we do a lot of moderation and cleansing of the data to make sure that everything downstream is not impacted. I talked earlier about capacity availability. Capacity is not infinite. So you have to plan it, you have to book it, and you have to use the data to try and plan that data, that availability of those instance types to ensure it is available when you need it. Last thing you want to do is have a live production and go to it and it's not there, because that will be a very scary and bad situation to get yourself in. Video interoperability in the cloud is a nightmare. Software masks so many problems, and we learned this quite quickly. You can't trust your providers. They tell you they're sending it in one thing, but with software, because it masks it, identifying the problems is incredibly difficult. And sometimes it doesn't manifest until it gets to the customer. So we've had situations where we saw dropouts and pixelization and things happening on the customer end, and when we went back through the signal chain, we couldn't identify what those problems were. And people are saying, oh yeah, we're conforming to standards and we're doing all of this, and they weren't. It took us months to track down and identify problems around frame rate or people using 50 and 60 hertz variabilities in different formats. And so that is an incredible point. It's like specification and understanding and testing is a very big part of what you do here, because so you have to do a very like an onboarding process for each one of these sports. The operational practices are completely different. They are alien to what our teams know today. So you have to go on a lot of journey around training and getting them to rethink everything in the operating model. So we had to kind of start again. FinOps is another area. When you are managing this level of infrastructure and the 44,000 instances and things like that, understanding and tagging your instance types, everything for us is a rate card. We say to our sports teams, you can do this sport and you can charge, and we charge it by the hour. So you have to really identify and understand all of those different workloads and what they mean to you to ensure that you're not scaling, because you can go out and get some GPU instances and the next thing you know, your costs are ballooned and it's double the cost of what you expected and what you budgeted. So FinOps is really important. And then minimizing our MTTR is incredibly important. So having that active, keeping reliability at the core of everything we do, that has been a real important part of what we've done. So finally, we talk about, this was all around data and AI in the summary of this thing. Everything we've done is mostly centered around data, but we are really now on the journey of introducing AI and GenAI. We're doing it in lots of different aspects of our thing. So things like highlights, it's becoming more and more commonly practiced, but all our highlights are driven by AI. We're using that to create sort of recaps of our games. We're using that to drive smarter operations, so things like chatbots. And so when we have issues, we're using the AI to identify where is those issues. Having predictive monitoring. So these are all things that we're pursuing to improve and to become more efficient with our output. So I think Simone's going to come back up and ask me a few questions about what we executed. Thank you.
This is actually my favorite part because Dave and I worked together on the deck. But he has no idea what I'm about to ask him.
It's the more daunting part.
So first off, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's start with something simple, which is, I must admit that when I talk about what you guys have done to other customers, a common reaction is, that's cool, that's very impressive, but how did they get there? What's your secret sauce?
Well, first off, we didn't fire the team. It's having a very good team. And letting them have the freedom to express and do things in different ways, and giving them the support to do that. I talked about providing the guardrails. We set an expectation of what we want. We put the ambition purposely very high, but we kind of are relentless with that ambition. It's like, let's not stop. Let's keep pushing through the boundaries, find the challenges, dealing with latency issues. So that, working with good partners, embracing partnership, bringing people like Amazon into that, not being closed and insular is an important aspect. So really good team, openness, transparency, pushing the boundaries.
And what I really appreciated of our experience together is this kind of trust that we actually built together. It's no longer vendor or partner or customer. It's really, we have this common problem. Let's try to get the best to solve it.
Yeah.
Great. And I saw numbers like 98% CO2 reduction, 10 times less operation. How did you get that number?
So we make a lot of comparison to our existing infrastructure. So we know the cost and consumption per kilowatt hour for producing a sport. And then we can make a direct correlation to how we do it in this new environment. And mathematically, that's how we got to those numbers. So it's comparing old current with the new infrastructure, that's showing that these are the powerful numbers that are coming through.
Understand. And now that you transformed Sky Sport Plus with all these incredible numbers of new events, is there a plan to use the same mechanism, the same model to transform all the other sports in Sky, including Premier League?
Yes. So we found it a wonderful test bed to kind of go on that transformation journey. We're exploring all avenues, and I think we will certainly push everything into this model. There's still a few more challenges around tier one, as you know, but I think those barriers are really starting to come down, and some very exciting technology out there that is going to allow us to do things like large-scale audio processing in the cloud. That is kind of like the final barrier, I think, for tier one. So yeah, there's going to be certainly that is the plan.
I think this is a message for our broadcast partner out there. We need your help to support with audio more than video, probably.
We do.
And in terms of lessons learned, you mentioned a couple of things like skill transformation, video, common format. How do you think we collectively as an industry can do to push the boundary forward?
That's a difficult one.
That's why I'm here.
I think, collaboration, working together, testing, I think that is essential part of it. I think looking at other industries, and there's a lot of evolving technology out there that we need to bring into the broadcast industry.
Like uncompressed in the cloud, maybe?
Uncompressed in the cloud is what I'm pushing for, and grid computing. Grid computing, smart networking on the data center backplanes to allow us to create big blocks of memory. That I think is the holy grail, and I think it's not far away. There's, there are vendors out there that are offering it on-prem that we are already using. I know you guys are working on some protocols to bring that forward. As soon as that comes a real thing, then I think that is the final boundary removed.
And I guess this leads to my final question, which starts with a consideration. 2 years ago, you and I were on this exact same stage talking about transformation, innovation, and today here we are again. What we are going to discuss 2 years from now?
Hopefully how we've moved all of our workloads to that way of working. I think it'll be that on steroids, supercharged. Probably a lot more, everyone says it, and unfortunately I'm going to have to say it, but GenAI is going to be a massive part of that, and how we can bring in and train more models to make that successful. And so, yeah, it's probably more volumes, higher volumes, at a lower cost.
More crazy stuff, as always.
More crazy stuff, yeah. Data-driven Gen AI.
I like that. See you in 2 years' time frame?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for being here. Enjoy the rest of re:Invent.